Hello. Yeah, so I wanted to put together a video really just to show you how we start to use Fusion 360, which I think there's a few tutorials that we've got obviously on the Patreon page and a couple on the YouTube page. This one's going to be more around looking at how we can use some of the existing designs, probably more importantly being able to cut your own. For those of you that have got access, if you go onto Patreon and filter by dedicated patrons, you'll see a big long list of Fusion links, and they tend to look a little bit like this. Now, all you've got to do is paste them into a browser. I tend to use Chrome because it's a little bit more reliable, and then effectively, what that gives you access to is to the original Fusion 360 designs for the models. So this is one that I've worked on recently from the new movie, and the what's really handy I think with these, if you're building the models, what you can start to do, and I'm just hiding these reference screens that we've got, but what you can start to do is you can start to look at how the model's built. You can see the individual components and parts that are in the model, which then lets you sort of get an idea of how it actually goes together. So you can kind of really see the model and all of the assembly bits, and it's just a really quite useful, I guess, for being able to, rather than the PDF instructions that we put together, just being able to kind of dig in and to start to look around at the at how things are constructed, and to be able to take things apart and just have a look at what's going on. So you have got in there, you've got a fairly basic set of tools through Fusion that lets you play around with this. What you can also do in here is you can download the file. So if we click on Fusion, you can send yourself an email link. You can download the step files. So it gives you access to all of the original files, which means that you can then install Fusion and start to work on them in your own kind of manner. So that's how you've got access to the designs. What I was going to quickly do now is start to take you through very basics of Fusion 360, but also more importantly, guess how you can start to cut your own pieces, just so that if you've got different size printers, you're not relying on me or the other guys to get them cut. You can cut them to whatever size you want, and cutting objects are fairly simple, really. So what I'll do is I may just for the fun of it, actually, I might just pull up the this little fella and just really start to demonstrate a couple of simple cuts. So there's still quite a bit of work to do on this. This was just the first sketch that I did. Now, Fusion 360, if you've not used it before, basically the middle mouse button moves the object around. I tend to keep my finger on the shift key. If you press the shift key, you can spin it around like that, and that rotating and spinning gets you to the most where you need to, and then your mouse wheel will let you zoom in and out. If you get lost, the big cube at the top corner here, click on home and you're back in. So this isn't a Fusion 360 tutorial, but I'm just going to try and get you through the basics. So moving around, middle mouse key, press the shift key and you can spin it all around, and then you've got a cube which you can go to if you get lost, and the middle mouse wheel will let you zoom in and out. Okay, you got that? Cool. Right, what we will do is, I'm first of all going to probably I'm just going to do a simple cut on this side panel here. So, what you have on Fusion is you've got this browser window, and you can open this up and you can see all the individual parts that sit within here. And if you hover over them, it'll show you which parts they are, so you're not going to kind of find them. I'm going to make things simple, I'm just going to hide everything apart from this side panel that we're working on, which is that piece. So the way you hide it is you just turn the little light bulbs off like this, and you just, I mean, there's probably quicker ways of turning them all off, but hey, I'll just click down here for the speed of it. And as you can see, each of the parts that make up that model are now disappearing. So now that's the part that I want to cut. Okay, so I'll just click the house one to get it in there so we can see it. So what I'm going to do with this one, I think, is we'll do it cut it in half, and I'll do a little bit of a dovetail there, so we've got a join. And I'll just take you through some of these really simple ways. So the way we cut something is we have to draw a sketch, and the sketch has to sit on a face. Sorry. So in Fusion, if you click sketch and you click line, now what that's looking for is for a face or a surface or a plane to be able to draw on. By default, you'll have these three little origins here, which were visible if you've got the origin buttons lit, or you can actually find a flat plane on the model. Challenge we've got with Fusion is it doesn't allow you to select curved planes, only flat planes. So you have to find a flat plane. But for us, this is going to be quite simple. And to be honest, most of the models I do have got flat surfaces. So we're going to click on this one here. And now what we've created, as you can see, is it's almost like a piece of paper that's linked to that piece. Now, if I want to do a simple cut, I can literally draw a line like this. There's your line. Any size, any angle. It doesn't even matter if it covers the object or not, but I'll just do it like that. Okay. Once you've completed that, if you click tick, so that was the keys were just sketch and line, and we've created a line. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I want to cut that object. I'm going to modify the object, so I'm going to cut it obviously, and in modify you have a split body, and split body lets you chop the body in half with a reference point. Okay, so when you've split the body, it's now asking me what body do I want to split. I've only got this one that's highlighted, so I'm just going to click on that body, and then it's asking me for a splitting tool. So how do I want to split it? I'm just going to click that line there. Now what that's done is it's extended that line so it cuts right the way through the body, and it's showing you roughly where that knife's going to go. So you click OK. And now, if you can see in the browser, we've got this and we've got this. We've got two parts to that body. So there's one part, there's the other part. Okay. So if I wanted to now, I could that effectively gives me my two-part split, which means that I could quite easily fit that onto the printer. I'm just going to undo that cut, because obviously that was just an angle cut to show you how that would work. And what I'll do is I'll now do more of a cut that is a little bit accurate, and also something that would be useful with, as I said, a dovetail, just to take you through how I would do that. So stop sketch, there's my object. I'm going to cut a line straight the way down the middle there, and I want to put a little dovetail in this space here. So what I'll do first of all is I will click on sketch and click on line. It's now looking for a surface to draw on, so I want to draw onto this front piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut it straight down the middle like that, just like that. Okay. So, but before I do that, what I'll do is I'm going to put that dovetail in. So I'm going to draw that line to about there, and then I'm going to start to take a line off to do the angle for the dovetail. Now the beauty of Fusion is it does kind of snap to and line up with different objects, so you've not got to be 100% accurate. So the first thing I do is I'm going to pull that back. Now you can see there's two measurements. One's length of the line, the other one's the angle. That's 90 degrees. I probably want it about 70. So holding the mouse still, I'm just hit the tab key so that 90 is highlighted. I'm going to try type in 70 and hit tab again. And what that does is it locks in 70. So it's now snapping to 70 degrees. I'll do the same on the distance. I'll just do that as a 10 mil. I'll hit tab. And now I've got 70 degrees, 10 mil locked in. I'm going to click click. And it's done that. Then straight line again. What should we do that at? Let's do that at 18 for a laugh. Get it to the point where and again, it snaps in straight. Okay. And then I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. And then I'm going to do that return. So this is 70 degrees. So what I want is a similar one again, which is tab it, type in 70, tab it again. It locks it in. And if you move it along, it snaps to that line. Okay. Once I've clicked on that, now I can continue the rest of the cut. There we go. So what I've created now is I've created a continuous line that just does that little dovetail cut for that object. Okay. I'm still in line mode, so if I hit escape, it just brings me back to this. That line, that's the old line, that's annoying me, so I'm just going to highlight that and hit the del key to see if I can get rid of it. It's not letting me because it's on another sketch. Not to worry. So I now have what I would say is the first cut. The challenge with 3D printing is when it squishes the layers on top of each other, what it actually does is it expands it slightly. So if you just do a straight cut like that and try to slot the two parts together, they won't fit because they're too big. So you have to create a tolerance or a gap between these. So you have to take a little bit of plastic out. There's a couple of ways of doing that. You could cut it and then you can pull the surfaces back in. Or what we're going to do actually is we're going to create another line very close to this line that allows us to have that tolerance. So if I double click on that line, you can see it's all highlighted. And I'm going to use something in Sketch called offset. And what offset is, I'll just show you if you zoom in, is it kind of gives you exactly what it says on the tin, which is an offset. And so if you move it like that, you can see what offset actually does. It's an offset from the original line. Now, from experience, to get a nice tight fit, I would do about 0.2 millimeters. Okay. And that's given me a 0.2 millimeter gap between these two lines. And if I click OK, I now have two cuts of this, or two lines to cut this object. The final part is we're going to cut it now. So if I click modify and split body. Okay. Now, when I've done that, a couple of things have happened. I've gone out of sketch mode and my sketches have disappeared. You've not lost anything. If you look in the browser window here, there's our sketches, and it's purely because the light's not on. So I'll switch the light back on, and if you highlight that, you can see the ridiculous amount of sketches that I've got actually that sit within there. So I'm just going to tidy it up so we can just see that one sketch. But there you go, there's your sketch. So the first cut I'm going to do, you see these lines are really close together, is the one on the inside. So I'm going to click modify, split body. I'm going to highlight this body as a whole. And if you go onto the browser again, you'll see that the body's been highlighted. And the splitting tool, I'm going to use that first very inner line like that. So I've pressed it now, and what you can see, I don't know if you see that in 3D, but what it's done is it's cut through the object. I'll click OK, and now, as you can see, we now have that dovetail cut inside the model. Okay. What also happens, and you can turn this off by default, is once you've used a sketch, Fusion very happily hides it for you. So I can't see my second line now. If I click on that again, my lines come back again. So just get used to your light bulbs because Fusion does occasionally hide stuff. So if you look at my lines cuts there, and I'm now going to cut that outer sketch. So similar, modify, split body. At this point, I've got to select this side because that's where I'm taking the cut from. There's two independent bodies now. And I'm going to click the splitting line as that second line there like that. And then I'm going to click OK. So now if I hide the sketches, you can see I've got what looks like a thicker cut. But if I zoom in, I've actually got a number of parts here, 3 parts. I've actually got... If you look on the browser window, I've got lots of parts because these bits here that have been cut in the center are individual components. So the 2 parts that I want to keep is this outer part, I'll hide it, and this inner part, I'll hide it. So what I want to show you is the kind of 0.02 millimeter lumps of plastic that we're trimming out, and they're all in there. They're the ones that are lit, highlighted. So I'm just going to delete those because I don't really need them. So, and because they're the ones with the lights, they're fairly easy to do. So hit that, press del key, and then those little tiny pieces in between, del, and finally del. So what I should have now is this piece, and I've got to try and find my other piece because I can't remember which one of these ones it is, but hey, that's straightforward. There we go. Right, and there you go. There we go. So that now gives me 0.2 mil gap, which is a good tolerance. I've got a dovetail there. Obviously, what I probably normally do is do a dovetail there, but I've done this for a little bit of speed, and effectively that would slot in quite nicely. The other thing that I do tend to do, and I'll just quickly show you these, and it will not work on this model, so I'm only demonstrating it really, and I'll tell you why it won't work in a second, is I put little peg holes in for 1.75 mil filament so that you can use them for alignment. Very simply, once I've cut a face, what I do is I decide I'm going to put the peg holes here. I'll do a sketch and a circle, center point diameter, click onto that. And what I'll do is I'll highlight where I want to put the circle, and you can plan this or you can just draw it, doesn't matter. And I might do 1.95 mil typically, which gives me that 0.2 again. It's really difficult getting accurate ones for this because it depends on your printer tolerances. This kind of works for me. 2 mil also works, so it can be whatever you kind of want to have a little play with. And what you've created there, and again, it looks like it's in the sketch. There we go. What you've created there is a little circle. So you can zoom in, you can highlight that circle, and that's how we're going to do the pegs. Now, if I right-click on that, and I'm going to do something called Extrude. Again, look on the other videos, but what Extrude does is it allows you to create lumps of plastic like that, just by pulling them out from that particular circle. So I'm cutting a hole. If I pull it into the plastic, look, it kind of cuts the hole. So it automatically decides whether it's going to make plastic or cut plastic, depending on the direction that you're actually going. What I'm actually going to do is I'll just hide the other body so you can see what's kind of going on. Is in the extrude setting, you've got direction, and it's got one side. If I click on symmetry, it actually pulls it up both ways, which is really handy for pegs because it saves you having to do both pieces separately. So I'm going to do that first. I might do, what should we do? 7 mil pegs, 14 mil pegs. Yeah, we'll do a 14 mil one for this one. It depends on how much plastic you've got to play with. But what we've done there is we've created a bar that's 14 millimeters long. Okay, and I'm going to bring back in these two parts. So that part, now you can see as soon as it's clashed, that's turned to red, which means it's actually cut. And I'm going to very coolly then try to pull in the second part and missed a little bit, but hey. Right, so now I've got both parts actually visible, and I've got that. At this point, I'm still in extrude mode. And if you look at operation, it's going to be cut. As long as the parts are visible, and as long as you've got cut, it will cut both parts at the same time. So I'm going to click OK on this. Now, if I hide that, I'll just show you what we've got. So on that side, we've got 7 mil hole. And on that side, we've got a 7 mil hole. So you can see that what you've now got is you've got that keying peg hole for joining those two parts together. The reason it wouldn't work on this model, as I said before, is that what we're going to be doing is having a push dovetail there and a part that has to slot together there, which means that you're going to have to try and push the dovetail and then squeeze the plastic in between. It's messy, so you either have push or you have dovetails. But I just wanted to kind of show you how that actually functions. So that's pretty much it. I mean, you can apply that to any of the fusion bodies, cut them in whichever shape and form you want to through the use of sketches. It hasn't got to be straight lines. It can be circles. It can be all sorts of stuff. But the basic function is you draw a sketch on the outside of a flat bit. You cut the body, make sure you've got tolerances, and then you've created your cut that will fit together. Every time that you sketch, you will have dimensions. I'll just quickly show you Whoops-a-daisy. I'll quickly show you dimensions. Let's try whoops-a-daisy. Is cool word that. Center sketch. Draw it onto that flat plate. So when you're drawing a square, there we go. You can see the dimensions. One thing that's quite handy actually is if you've got a 210mm by 210mm bed printer, is draw a little square like that, double click on it, and right click and move. And what you can actually do is then shift that square about, so I can then see if it's possible to do, for example, that plate as a single print. Obviously it isn't. I could say actually I need to cut that in 4 to fit it onto there, but what I can also do then is rotate the part on the bed, and then I will get that half a circle on the bed plate. But it just lets you kind of in the space see what size print bed you've got and to see if it would fit. Okay, guys, so that's a very quick Fusion video. I also wanted to really show you the web interface, because I think the web interface is not just for if you want to design and cut your own parts, but it's incredibly useful for doing for references when you're building the model. We've got the PDFs, but ultimately having just been able to bang it into a web browser and just being able to kind of look around a little bit and start to understand things. You can also do stuff like just take measurements if you wanted to check various dimensions. There's all sorts of little tools that kind of sit within there, and so it really is quite a quite a neat little interface. And to get access to all of these models, these are the ones that are shared in Fusion. So again, reminder, patron page, browse by dedicated patrons, and within there's generally a text post where I update all of the public models that are in there. This folder here just kind of shows you all of the sort of models that we've got that are being shared in the public area. If you do want any of the any other models, then by all means give me a shout, and more than happy to share anything we've got. There are some tutorial ones on there as well, so if you want to just have a little bit of a play with some of the basic modelings, you can do, and they're the ones that get you started. So guys, that's it from me. I think hopefully that's been helpful on cutting models. What I will do is just after this one, I'm going to record a similar one just on cutting meshes. One important thing I guess to point out is in Fusion World, the models, which is what we're playing with here, are very different than meshes. And meshes are the STLs. So if you do get an STL file, a ready to print file, cutting those are a little bit different. So I'll just pull one in there, insert mesh STLs. I don't know what mesh STLs we've got. Where have we got? Let's just pull in a single dome like that. Yeah, so mesh files are very as you can see, I'll just pull that into Fusion. What mesh files are is they're made up of lots and lots and lots of little triangles. You can't actually grab hold of faces, so cutting a mesh file up is very different than cutting the original design body up. I will do a quick mesh tutorial on cutting those as well. But as I said, they are a little bit different. This one is very much for cutting the Fusion models, or the step models, which is the formats that you can load into a designer. Cool, right, I'm going to leave you in peace now. Hopefully that's been useful. You know, the Facebook groups, you know, the patron sites, links and all that kind of stuff are kicking around both in the YouTube channel and in the Facebook group. And we've got printeddroids.net, which is our forum. So lots of places to get lots of information. Okay, signing off. Take care and see you soon.